everyone has a next level and nobody gets there on their own. One of the things that we like to often frame at Novus Global as coaches is we call it the two greatest leadership challenges. And the first one is that every human vastly underestimates what they're capable of. And the other is that every human gets in their own way.
Welcome to the In-Between, a space for anyone navigating from the familiar to the unknown. Whether you're facing a personal, professional, or spiritual disruption, these conversations are here to help guide you through the questions, uncertainties, and opportunities that come with change. Hear from leaders, thinkers, and storytellers who found their way forward, and learn how you can too. No matter where you're starting, you don't have to navigate this alone. Today I'm sitting down with Andrew Simila, Associate Partner and Executive Coach with Novus Global. A speaker, trainer, and coach, Andrew brings over a decade of leadership and personal development experience to his work. After years in church planning and ministry, he now helps leaders create the life that they want and the results that they desire through courageous honesty, reinvention, and coaching. So, Andrew, I'm really glad to have this conversation with you.
Yeah. Hey, Evan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm excited to share some of your insight and experience.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on this. It's an honor.
Absolutely. So can you catch us up to speed? Can you kind of share a little bit about how you've come to do the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of came about this type of work. One way to answer the question is it's always been something I've done. I think growing up in high school, I've always been the kind of kid that, your friends go to get advice. Eventually I just stopped giving free advice. But, as a pastor for 15 years, being a part of a church in that space, during COVID, I ended up resigning and moving on into a new chapter of life and trying to figure out what I was going to do in the in-between. What was next. And I think that kind of relates to a lot of people maybe listening here. I've always been kind of in this work. I think the goal was always to help and love and to serve people and to care for people. I kind of found myself in a couple conversations with some executive coaches. One of my friends called me out of the blue one day, a couple years back, about 4 years back, and was like, kind of just, hey man, checking in, how you doing, how you feeling? And I shared a little bit of what I was kind of emotionally dealing with and physically, practically with my family, where I was at with work and life and income and all that, transition out of church. And, he was like, man, I hear that. I was just seeing if maybe it would be worth you and I having conversations around what's next for your life. And that led me to flying out 2-3 days later to New York to do a training with a really cool coaching space called Gap Community. And then from there, I came back to LA, where I was living in Orange County at the time, and was able to go to another training that Gap puts on called Awaken. And then from there, I was tied to some really cool conversations with those at Novus Global around what they have, what we have, as I'm a part of it, called MPI, the Meta Performance Institute. And that's like a 6-month program that kind of certifies you as a coach, trains you in our work and our tools. And then from there, I kind of accepted hey, let's go for it together in the coaching space with this awesome firm and the team and the coaches that we have. And so that kind of is a 30,000 foot fast draft view of how I got to where I'm at today.
Yeah. So in that, as you were going to those different opportunities, the one you mentioned in New York and then back in Orange County, I would assume you're exploring, asking questions. What helped you come to the conclusion that, like, hey, this is the next step that I want to take? Like, what type of questions were you being asked, or were you asking yourself that was helping you determine, like, I think I want to go down this road?
Yeah, I think one question that was prevalent at the time was, what would new look like? I think sometimes, often the human default is to look for better, especially in like just wanting to better yourself, and that's not bad. And how do I get a better job or a better salary or a better income, or how do I work for a better church, or be on a better team, or become better as a human, or how do I have a better marriage? And I think a lot of those questions, like if I had a poor marriage prior, a better version would just be a better version of a poor marriage. And so I think for me, I was really asking the question, what would new look like? If we were to take it into a faith context, I don't find anything in scripture where Jesus does better. I think I only have record of him doing new. The new heavens, new earth, the old is gone, the new is here. It's the new roads, new rivers. And so I was really in search of not repeating the past, which what we would call the human default. The default future is essentially what was becomes what is, and what is becomes what will be. I was really looking for what we call the generative future, which creates from the future, which has never been before. And so someone who's kind of living into that new asks themselves the question, not how can I be the best, but they ask themselves the question, what am I capable of? And I think for me, it was, man, taking a lot of my life and a lot of my experiences and a lot of my journey and just really asking myself new questions. I think our life is a sum total of the questions we ask ourselves. And I think one of the questions was, what does new look like? Another one was, what am I capable of?
Man, that's powerful. I heard, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you say once that at one point when you were in a transition process, you were looking at janitor positions.
Heck yeah.
and
Indeed,
so obviously,
pun intended.
Obviously anyone that like has even just, you and I've only heard you just on videos and podcasts, but obviously anyone can associate, no, this guy has way more, and not that there's anything wrong with any type of role or anything like that, but anyone can gather this guy has a lot of capability, possibility, potential. How did you, not only were you asking yourself, like, what does new look like, but how did you begin to, like, okay, I do have potential for this, or I am capable of doing that? Like, how did you begin to like build that belief and put those pieces together to say, I can use what I have or what I've acquired, the experiences that I have to do something new that I've maybe never done before?
Yeah, it's a great question. I want to like bring this into the melting pot of every human ever. Like, it's not like one way to say it is that everyone has a next level, and nobody gets there on their own. One of the things that we like to often frame at Novus Global as coaches is we call it the two greatest leadership challenges. And the first one is that every human vastly underestimates what they're capable of. And the other is that every human gets in their own way.
Hey friends, I want to pause just for a moment. If you're navigating the complex and emotional process of leaving a mission-driven role, whether that's been ministry, nonprofit work, or any purpose-driven career, you're not just looking for a new job. You're wrestling with things like the personal, professional, and spiritual dynamics that come with all of this. Maybe you're asking things like, who am I outside of this role? What skills do I even have that can translate into the future? Will I ever find work that feels meaningful again? If this is resonating, download Finding Your Way to Flourishing. It's a free guide that I've put together for mission-driven leaders who find themselves in the midst of transition. This isn't just another guide. It's a thoughtfully crafted resource that's designed to help you begin processing your identity beyond the role that you're leaving. It can help you pinpoint which skills you can confidently bring into your new and next role. And it'll help you lean into your faith and find peace during the midst of this uncertainty. Not overwhelming, it's not complicated. It's just the first step to getting some clarity and moving forward. You don't have to figure this all out alone, and I'd love to walk this journey with you. This guide is completely free, and you can grab your copy today by clicking the link in the description or in the show notes. Let's start making some sense of this transition together. Okay, now back to the conversation.
And so as I'm sitting on that easy boy chair, lean back, looking on Indeed for some janitor jobs, much like every human ever has a next level, that's why the powerful question of what am I capable of invites you into exploration. And so, I think in those moments in my life, it was whether you call it being down in the dumps, defeated, deflated, discouraged, no hope, kicked in the gut, got the wind knocked out of you, look kind of like someone, not like an on and off switch, but a dimmer. Like you just feel like the future or the hope that I had was dim, and that the human default is comfort. And so in that, it's like sitting in a lazy boy chair, metaphorically and literally. It's like I kind of felt myself in that space, like this is all I'm worth. This is what I'm this is what it's amounted to. This is what I just need to pay the bills. I got to figure out how to provide for my family. And so I don't want to say that I did anything extremely heroic or powerful in the way of, I pulled myself up from my own bootstraps. I picked up that chair. I was like, I ain't gonna, it was not me. It was a slow way to look at it would be like I was starting to become open to the possibility that there's something beyond that I'm not seeing. And I think that's the first step. If someone's listening to this and they feel like they're in that same spot that I just described, it's am I open? Like, if there was something new out there, have I given myself permission to explore it?
As you were talking, I was a pastor for 18 years. I've talked to several, just even over the past several days, people who are stepping out of pastoral ministry in the context of church settings. And it is just overwhelming how many people in that type of situation find themselves in the exact same place that you just described. But it seems as if when we are people of faith, that it should almost be the exact opposite, because we have this faith and this hope that we hold on to, and that we are guiding other people in and towards, and we're preaching about. But when we experience these types of shakeups for ourselves, I think even we get a taste of the human experience, maybe to a degree that we haven't before. But why?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on like why? And I imagine it's probably the same, or could be the same, for any individual that's really making a big shift or change in their life. But any insight on why pastors or ministry leaders in particular might have that type of down in the dump experience, even though they have this other faith that they're holding on to?
Yeah. So I think as a believer, you're there's things that are thrown around like, this is the call I got on my life, or like I was born for this, and so they get attached to a title rather than like a function. And so when things aren't functioning anymore, it's trying to figure out, how do I be the best, and how do I hold it together, and and that's typically like where the survival needs of looking good, feeling good, being right, being in control come in. And then when I feel like all that's kind of like exposed, it's kind of like, I just think it's I think one of the hardest questions for a believer to answer, one of the hardest questions for a believer to answer is, what do you want? Like, because the default response to that is God's will, or like what God wants. And so I have kids, right? And my kids are ferocious in what they want, right? My son just asked for ice cream for breakfast today. And it's like, it's powerful because as I watch them grow and they're learning trust, they're pushing boundaries. But ultimately they have a relationship with dad that gives them the opportunity and the freedom and the trust to just ask. And I think sometimes when we're posed with that question, maybe subconsciously or consciously, like, what do you want? I think one heroic way to say it is, I want God's will. but the human way to say it is I'm avoiding whatever it might be that I would be avoiding. So I think of like blind Bartimaeus being called out on the street by Jesus, and he calls him forward, and people tell him to be quiet, and he shouts all the louder, and Jesus calls him in, and he asks him the question, what do you want? And he says, I want to see. And it's powerful to sit in that kind of question. And I think pastors or leaders in ministry often don't give themselves permission, like a child, to answer it. And I think it comes down to permission at times. Man, like what have I given myself permission to ask myself, what do I want?
Yeah, I just had a conversation with Samantha Mackay, and we got on permission as well. And how do you give yourself permission?
Yeah, I think like the short answer is Nike. I'm just kidding. But I think, just do it. But I think it is a risk, right? I think so growth happens on the hook, not off it. So for me being on a phone call with my friend and him inviting me into New York, permission for me looked like taking a risk. Right? For me, booking my own flight, flying over there 3 days later, stepping into a space that I've never been before, letting go of my beliefs, limited beliefs, opening up, being open-minded, exploring, and being curious. I think a lot of it, like, how do I give myself permission? The one question I would ask is, what would you need to let go of in order to give yourself permission? Because, like I said on the podcast I did with Carl Lentz, was typically humans ask the wrong question. They ask the question, how do I give myself permission? Rather than asking, who do I need to become in order to give myself permission?
Yes.
So it's not a how question that I find myself there. It's a who question.
What does that look like for you? Like when you're becoming, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Like, who might I need to become in order to give myself permission? Willing to be vulnerable. I need to become someone who's vulnerable. I need to become someone who is a risk taker. I need to become someone who isn't right. I think most humans aren't getting all out of life that they want or where they want to go in life because they're more committed to being right than they are committed to being curious. And so they've convinced themselves that they're right about the call that God gave them in their life. And so I had a call just recently, 2 days ago, with an ex-youth pastor who's now got 2 kids living in his 30s. And man, I feel like I've been called to preach. And so since I haven't been in this church that I was a part of anymore, I felt like I've lost my calling. And so in my depression, I actually went back to I kind of explored, like, was I called to preach, or was I addicted to it? Because in my addiction of, like, or let's just say in my depression, every Sunday would come around and I would prepare a sermon, and I would get an adrenaline rush or a dopamine hit, and then I would dive on a Monday, and I'd be depressed Monday through Friday until I figured out, oh yeah, I'm going to hit this again. Right. And so his question was like, am I addicted to it? Is it an addiction that's like fulfilling like a depression gap, or like hitting a dopamine hit? Or am I called to it? And I thought, like, I don't know. I think let's just imagine, right? Let's give ourselves permission that you were never called to preach, but you were called to people. So the message can stay the same, but the method can change. Right? So in his case, it's a black or a white. It's an on or an off. It's not a dimmer. It's not like, could I be wrong? Right? And so notice, like, the stories that we tell ourselves we live into it, but they also serve us. And so by me as a preacher saying I'm called to preach, that's like resourceful. It serves me. It's like it helps how I show up. But when I get out of that position, like how do I function without the title? How do I function without
Yes.
the role? And so I think when I say like, who do I need to become? I got to give myself permission. I gotta be open to being wrong. I gotta be curious. I gotta be explorative. And I think there's a level of play. I got to be playful. Like I don't have to have it all figured out. I think I keep referencing my kids, but it's like just watch them play. That my son is building the Legos, and it's a box full of free Legos. There's no like right or wrong. There's no instructions, no thing he's building. But I'm like looking at him do it, and my human default is that like he's putting a wheel on the front as like a machine gun or something. Like, and I'm like, that's a wheel, man. And it's like, I just think in the human default, more than anything, we want to be right.
Yeah. Yeah. How old are your kids,
5,
Andrew?
7, and 9. Yeah.
5, 7, and 9.
In the thick of it.
That's a fun range of ages.
Yeah. It's awesome to see them in this age and stage of life. And we recently moved to Boise, Idaho. It's beautiful out here. And the reason we did is create space and slow down and give them, in this chapter and season of their life of the 90s childhood. Like my kids leave on their bikes with their neighborhood friends, and they come home when the streetlights turn on type of vibe. So it's fun.
Yeah, that's great. I grew up in the 90s too, so totally can relate to that. As someone that pastored, do you ever have thoughts that, and well, maybe more context is helpful, but so maybe from my own life, like when I was thinking about leaving pastoral ministry, I had thoughts like, because I have 3 sons, and at the time they were in their teenage years. My 2 older sons were a little older, but well, if I'm not in this role or in this position or functioning inside of a church in this way, how is that going to impact my kids? What's that going to do to their faith? But I've actually found the more that I become, or that I'm attempting to become who Christ might have me to be, and focus on that more than what he might have me to do, it's actually making my relationship with my kids so much healthier. And I think giving them a better reflection, not just of my love for them, but also of Christ's love for them. So I'm saying a lot to ask you, like, with your kids, have you ever had those kinds of thoughts? And if so, like, how are you working through them?
Like I think it's important to separate like pastoring from a function to like this is something I do versus this is who I am. And there's a distinction there. I don't believe I'm not pastoring anymore. I'm still pastoring. I'm still ministering. I'm still loving people. I'm still showing up for humans in that way. I might not do it on a church staff, in a function, in a role, in a title with a leadership hat on. But yeah, I think I think curiosity is powerful because it holds kind of an open canvas. So let's talk about if I'm not a pastor anymore and my kids are looking up to me or they're looking at me, and this is a model, or this is whatever case I want to build. Like this, it sets an example. It's like, whatever that is. It also poses the question like, hey, let's imagine this isn't serving your family. Not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying let's just play with it for a second. Let's imagine it's not. How might it not be? Right. And so it's what I'm saying is the permission to just there's a demand, and there's like I remember when I would pastor in that conventional way, it was, man, like the cycle was I preach on Sundays. In New York, I would do, there were times where we were doing 7 services on a Sunday. So it would be like back-to-back services. And then in Orange County, I would do 3, and then I'd maybe drive to LA or I'd fly to SF or whatever that looks like. And then on top of that, it was travel. And then it was the bigger your church gets, the more you have to develop leadership. And so time and energy with the effort of people. And so I remember just like, by a Monday, dude, like any pastor out there listening to this knows what a Monday feels like, right? And then you kind of pick yourself up on a Tuesday, and Wednesday you're already sermon prepping, and you're sitting at the dinner table and you're physically present while you're mentally absent, and your energy is, because energy doesn't die, it just transfers, right? So if you shut the light off in one of your rooms, it doesn't mean your house doesn't have power. It just moves into a different room. So I would shift all of my energy, even though I'm sitting at the dinner table, my energy would be in my thoughts, this one point, the scripture, the anxiety, or whatever that felt like in your body, that weight. Sometimes people call it the weight of preaching or the weight of ministry. And so I would show up physically, but I wouldn't necessarily always be there mentally or emotionally for my kids. And so, I remember the first year of my daughter's life, like Monday was the only day I saw her. And to be honest, I was a shell of a human for the first year of her life on a Monday. And then, and typically on Monday, I would use Monday as a way to avoid, because it was like, I can't handle having my kid crawl all over me and be a dad right now. So I think there's, not to say that others aren't out there doing it healthy, and there's boundaries and there's rhythms and there's counsel and there's getting a therapist and a coach and obviously. But if you're transitioning out of it and all you're kind of married to is like, this is all I've ever done and this is all I'm ever going to do, and you're building a case for it's going to affect my kids and my family if I'm not pastoring, I'm saying, well, what if you gave yourself permission to explore how maybe the transition might serve your kids? I mean, and so what I'm hearing you say is like, man, maybe God's invited me more into not doing, but being. And so the version that I became over those years of transformation, I mean, my wife doesn't words can't be put to how much impact it's had on, some spouses would say like, I got my husband back, or like, there he is again, or like, my kids, I think it's, I think, you don't get to choose how what memories your kids have of you, I don't think, but you do get to choose who you're being around them.
Yeah.
And so I think giving yourself grace and permission, I think, is just so powerful to like, what if it wasn't right or wrong, on or off? Like, what if you could be curious and give yourself, I think we use at Novus Global, we use the hand as just like a physical evidence of it, but it's like, this is open mind, like this is closed minded, and some people are like, really closed minded, and then this is open minded, and this is closed off, this is open, this is like sure and right, this is like curious, and I think it's just what might it look like for me to be open?
I love that, man. I've been thinking about, I'm kind of switching gears here, but in your coaching with others, and thank you for sharing all that. I've been thinking about the dynamics between values-driven leadership and vision-driven leadership, and how they can work in tandem. However, I just think that there is a need for values-driven leadership over vision-driven leadership, because, well, before I give any of my thoughts, I'm curious, have you thought about those two dynamics, and how do you think about those two approaches or dynamics of leadership?
Yeah, maybe like the first thing, and I haven't really done much. I don't want to say like I'm still ideating maybe as you ask that question on like what my belief is around that. But the way I view vision is like, let's imagine it's a North Star, or it's a pin drop in a destination on your Google Maps, like metaphorically, like this. Let's imagine my life 6 months from now, and I'm standing on a rooftop with my wife, New Year's Eve, and our life is exactly the way that we want it. Like, what is the picture of the future that incites passion within us? Like, let's get big. Let's get clear on that. Let's create a vision that's big enough, clear enough, and thrilling enough that'll pull us through the pain of transformation, like who we might need to become in order to achieve it. Like, let's get like it's crystal clear and white hot. Like, this is the North Star. This is the pin drop. And notice, like in the metaphor of GPS, is like when you have that pin drop in that restaurant that you're going to, no matter where you're turning and where you're going, it's rerouting and it's eventually like going to get there. So there's multiple ways you could take this different streets to the same location. So there's no right way, but it's exploring and figuring out what's the most resourceful way. So I think vision in the sense of like it's a goal, it's a vision, it's a destination, it's a pin drop, it's a North Star. It's something that's big enough, clear enough, and thrilling enough. Values in my mind is maybe if I was to take a first rough draft swing at it, it would be like who I want to be along the way, or like what's important to me while we're on the way, or like what is valuable for us to be experienced as, or how do we want other people to experience us while we're on the way, right? So it's the values of our family. What do we value? The values of our marriage, the values of my how others experience me in that way. So that's kind of like my first swing at it. The one thing that comes up to mind is like how many people drive to church on a Sunday and they know exactly where they're going and they're fighting with their spouses the entire way. It's like, so like if those two were married, it would be like, this is what we're getting up to and where we're going, and this is who we're going to be along the way.
The thing that I've been thinking through is like if vision-driven leadership is the primary driver, sometimes vision at all costs makes it easier to forsake the values. And so it's like, how do you keep that in check so that the values that you say that you care about, or that you want to live by, or that you want to uphold, that those actually take precedence, even if it means that it could compromise the vision?
Yeah. So one thing we'll say is like at Novus Global, when we're working with clients, we'll talk about, we use this kind of equation or framework that we want to invite you into getting twice as much done in half the amount of time with increased joy and satisfaction. So like the vision is let's get twice as much done, in that sense, like twice as much revenue or twice as many results or twice as many butts and seats on a Sunday or whatever it looks like, but in half the amount of time, right? Or energy, or in order to get there with increased joy and satisfaction. And you can replace that with community or unity or alignment or whatever that looks like. But I do see what you're saying in the sense of the vision, that like, I think it's a becoming, though. I think like this isn't like, so if the value is being pressed up against the wall in order for me to achieve this vision, then it's a conversation, because the conversation isn't how much is this vision going to cost me? The question is, how much is this vision worth? Right. So it might cost me, but I might not be willing to like move on that value, right? And so there's this conversation around, is who might I need to become in order to still achieve my vision without letting go of this value or compromising or moving on this value. And I believe that's possible. That's the reinventing yourself on a daily basis. And that's where the growth and the pain and the transformation happens. So the goal is not that a client or a pastor or whoever does the thing. The goal is, it's less about what you're achieving and it's more about who you're becoming along the way. So that's why I say growth happens on the hook, not off it. So we set the vision in order to pull them through the pain of transformation. And so, I would love to make, X amount of revenue or monthly recurring revenue, or my business to scale like this, or to my brand to move like that, or my church to grow like this. But I want to ensure that I have my values with family time and time with my kids or date nights that doesn't move. So the
Mm-hmm.
growth is not in changing the vision or replacing or getting rid of the value. The growth is in who I might need to become in order to still achieve it while keeping that value. So, from a church standpoint, it might look like we want to reach X amount of people by this time in seats on a Sunday, but I want to be home or on vacation or traveling with my family or time to sermon prep or whatever. So the gap isn't, well, I'm not going to do that vision and reach that goal, or I'm going to not hang out with my family. It's like, well, who might I need to become as a leader, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what do I need to let go of, and who others do I need to invite in, and what does culture need to look like in our team? And so it's really
Mm-hmm.
like, let's hold those two. Let's not let them move.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's keep the vision and the values fixed in a sense, but let's become who we need to become in order to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned culture. What have you learned about the power of culture inside the organizations that we either work within or that we're building, or even within our families? What is, for good or for bad, what have you learned about the power of culture?
Yeah, yeah. Well, culture is like constantly driving leadership. Like culture is um, absolutely. Um, let's just say it like, every system works the way that everyone in the system wants it to work. Like, let's just imagine and try that one on for a second and go like, if that was true, like, how is this working for us? Like, it's powerful. Culture is like, it's moving us. It's like a lazy river in a sense of sorts. It's like it's the water we're swimming in a way, and it's working for us. And so I think it's really one question I would invite people into is like, how would they define our culture, or how would they define the culture of their team and organization, and then how is that serving us? Like,
That's a great,
yeah.
yeah, I love that. I love the space that those two questions potentially create
Hmm. Yeah,
to explore.
yeah, like the culture in New York is powerful. Like, it's a hustle, it's a grind, it's a grit, it's fast pace, it's like, go getters. It's like super powerful. It's creative. It's expressive. It's fun. It's open. It's like there's this level of culture in New York City that, man, it just like this system of New York is working the way that everyone in the system wants it to work. And then the question is like, how does this serve us? Well, like, well, it serves us in getting where we want to get to. It serves us in creating the results we want to create. But another way to look at it would be um, like if I was, for instance, if my marriage was on the rocks and I was living in New York, how does the culture of New York serve my marriage? And then if I was to
Mhm.
look, actually slow down, look introspective, it serves me in avoiding slowing down. It serves
Mhm.
me in
Mhm.
avoiding, having certain conversations with my spouse, or like, so it's not like it's good or bad, right or wrong. It's just like, it poses the question, how might this be resourceful? How does it serve me?
Mhm. Sometimes when we go through transition or disruption, it's almost like we have dug our heels in and we've almost been pushed or
Mm.
forced into disruption or transition. Any thoughts on the indicators or signals? You're probably going towards change, and you can make this
Mm.
change 2 years
Mm.
earlier
Yeah.
instead of like waiting. Any thoughts on what those indicators or signals might be that somebody could be just mindful of or have in their back pocket to be like, you know what, these are things I need to be aware of as I'm just going through life, because I don't want to get pushed or find myself in the midst of disruption that I probably could have entered into in a more healthier way.
Yeah, like what I'm hearing is like it requires bravery, honesty, like vulnerability. So like one way to slow down in that is to ask your like, let's try on like every experience I'm having. Like let's imagine that every experience I'm having is an experience I'm creating. Like so even just like not making it about something else or someone else, but I'm choosing this and I'm creating this experience. Like that gives you the opportunity to like notice how maybe this isn't serving you. It's not resourceful. Like so there takes like the hypothetical will be someone that's maybe in a pastoral role or in a position in the business, and they're wanting to transition out. And so what typically you'll notice, like those tellings, we call it the FACS loop. It's like an acronym, but they're stuck in this loop. F standing for frustration, A standing for avoidance, C standing for complaining, like what am I complaining about? T standing for what am I tolerating? S standing for what I'm scared of. And so I'm in this frustrated, avoiding, complaining, tolerating, scared of type of loop. And so slowing down in that loop and saying, you know, and trying on, like if every experience I'm having is an experience I'm creating, um, you know, sometimes you just need a train wreck. Like you just need an explosion and a disruption. I think that's where a lot of shifts actually happen. But if I was like, ultimately what humans are choosing when they're in that loop and what they are seeing, but they're not doing something about it, is they're choosing comfort. They're like they're failing to realize that this facts loop is a winning strategy and it's serving them staying comfortable. But you won't have transition without discomfort, or you won't have transition without growth, progress, and challenge. Try asking my wife, who's had 3 kids, how comfortable it was to have one, right? It's like, and so we think of like the pain of transformation. We talk about giving birth like as if they just did it all nice and happy. Like 9 months of body shifting, changing, expanding, cravings, hormones, emotions, like pushing and like just like, ugh. Like so but I think it's like why the same reason why someone leaves CrossFit and feels like he's almost dying or she's almost dying, and it was like that was awesome. It's like so because the deepest fulfillment in our life comes from growth, progress, and challenge, not comfort. But just noticing how that loop is, and it's comfortable. It's super comfortable for me to complain about my organization and say it's their fault, and to be honest, like if I wait until I get fired or something happens, then I get to be right. And I get to be justified as a victim. Whereas I think for my story man, there were tellings. Like I had complaints. I was frustrated with things. I started to notice things in the organization I was a part of. And it was kind of like, I'll bet my bottom dollar that if someone's listening to this right now and they're having those same sort of things with their organization or their church or whatever, that they're, without anyone knowing, you're already thinking of exits, or you're probably online looking at different jobs and different roles in different states. I guarantee you, right? I don't want to guarantee it, but I have a high believability that they're already looking at other avenues, right? And what they're avoiding in that, which I was avoiding in that, was having conversations that were uncomfortable.
Yes.
So I think what I'm saying is like, if you really want to transition well, it's going to require you to lift the weight. And so there's you can avoid it until it explodes, or you get fired, and then you're going to be a victim and you get a blame, and it's like it's their fault. They didn't change it, but failing to realize that the system's working exactly the way that you want it to, and you're advocating your power of choice, and you're not choosing to speak up. Because the conversations I would have had, typically it looks like I'm having indirect conversations instead of direct conversations. I was talking to my colleague or my executive or whatever, rather than talking to the lead, right? And so it's like, I'll talk about somebody, but I won't talk to somebody. And so just noticing where, hey, giving yourself permission to man, I'm thinking about this. And then so the fears come up where like, well, if they even got a sniff of the fact that I was trying to get out of here or it moved on, it's like, so then that's the story. And that's like, and then so we tell ourselves a story that keeps us in that loop rather than going, they would be open and receptive and they want the best for me and like, whatever, or maybe this isn't serving me and maybe there's more. So it takes that, man, it's such a nuance, but it's risk, it's discomfort, it's challenge, it's progress, it's growth. And to be honest, a lot of people want that, but a lot of people want transformation. A lot of people want shifts, change, transition, but not everyone is committed to it. Like everyone wants to be fit. And everyone knows how to get fit. Like here's the gym, here's the personal trainer, here's the diet, change out your fridge, right? Like whatever that looks like, everyone knows but it's like who they would need to become in order to do that is someone who's committed. And so when 5 a.m. rolls around, the alarm goes off, like no matter how much I want that, so I think it's like, yeah, it's like growth is, man, it's not easy, obviously, but it is thrilling, And I think if you're in that role and you're listening to this and you're having some kind of, these things that are coming up in you and these shifts and these notices or these like, you're maybe caught in that facts loop or, I would invite you into like getting curious, being open-minded and having direct conversations. And that's scary. Well, I will lose my job. How am I going to provide for my family? But yeah, for me personally, man, I was in that. I was, and I was a part of a pretty powerful, large movement. And so it was like, it takes courage to go to the plate and have a swing,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Andrew. I love the facts
loop,
framework. That is facts loop. Yeah. That's
Novus
amazing.
Global.
I have a couple.
No, trademark, not Andrew.
Well, you're able to speak through it and you know it and you know how to guide people through it. So that's powerful. I just have a couple more questions. As I am talking with you and in the several conversations that I've also heard, it always comes back to self-responsibility and ownership. Yeah. When you're coaching individuals through, or even in your own life, when you've had difficulty, or if you've had difficulty taking ownership, how do you recognize that? And then like, what gets you over the hump to start taking ownership or responsibility?
Yeah. Sometimes it's a blind spot, right? Like as you're continuing to do the work, you develop the mindfulness, I think, of noticing where I'm not, and then the not taking ownership, and then ultimately who I surround or who I allow into my world. Like my wife is ferocious in this because I've invited her into it, so she'll know when I'm not taking ownership, and so like having people in our lives that we've given permission to give us honest feedback, to be able to share their notices, that's huge. But I think so the question being like, how did I start to like kind of awaken to that? Maybe it's kind of how I heard that question, but it's like this isn't working in the way that is resourceful for my vision, because it doesn't serve me. Like in the way it serves me, absolutely. Like being a victim serves me. Being a victim is resourceful for me to stay comfortable, or for me to to tolerate and to allow. I'm getting something from it. But it's like, one way to say it is that people don't change when they can still fit in their jeans. It's kind of like people are tolerating and allowing and complaining and frustrated and they're scared. And it's like, until they can't like button the jeans, it's like, all right, I think I hit a point where, this is serving me in order to stay where I'm at, but I'm not happy. My soul isn't at ease and peace. And so, and ultimately, like, it happens through, sometimes it's a conversation like this that someone's listening to, and it's like, it's new to them. And it's not like I grew up on this. It's not like it was one conversation with my friend Chris that loved me enough to not let me, he let me be in that. Like, one thing about a coach is, like, at Novus Global, we're trained to listen. So some people use language to define their life, and others use language to create their life. And language reveals how the world occurs to us. So when I was on a call just before I hopped on this podcast, and the guy I was talking to was talking about, man, for the last 5 years, I've been in a deep hole. So as a coach, I'm like, instantly I know, like, I'm picking up the language. He's using his words to define his life. He's in a deep hole. And so Chris sat with me in the conversation long enough for me to, how's that feel for you? Like, do you like it? No, I hate it. Like, all right, cool. Well, what do you want to do? You know what I mean? But it was a one conversation that invited me into, what if it was different? And who might you need to become? So sometimes someone might be listening to this conversation. Someone I heard a podcast, watched a reel, went to a service, heard a sermon, like, however it comes about. But it's, man, I think it's, vulnerability, is courageous, and, sharing that is powerful. Not making decisions in a vacuum is resourceful. We're making about, on average as humans, 35,000 choices a day. That's a lot of choices. And most humans are making those choices in here. Instead of being vulnerable enough to say, hey man, this is kind of what I've been ideating on, thinking about, or this is what I'm frustrated with. Like, can you help me? So it takes courage. Vulnerability does. I don't know if that even remotely answered the question, but yeah, like, I think it's,
you did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes we would call it like an awakening, right? In a moment. And it's not about if God, like, if you believe in that, if God's ever gonna have those, like, those happen. I believe those moments happen on a daily. And typically those that are closest to you, like my wife. It's like, if you're wondering how your marriage is, just ask your wife, right? And then so if you're having a conversation around ownership in your marriage, just ask her, hey, scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate my ownership, taking ownership of our marriage? And if it's not a 10, then ask her, which it probably isn't, ask her, what would make it a 10 as it occurs to you? It's just like, okay. And then what you do with that, that's up to you. But, like, just notice, like, God is always saying something, and there's always something going on. And it's not a judgment, man. There's, like, that's one thing that's powerful. It's like ownership is like, there, it's like extreme ownership. It's like, there are several things that I'm not taking ownership of. I'm clearly avoiding. I know this, and it's like, and it could be very minuscule, and it could be huge magnitude. But, like, the point is like, it's about progress, not perfection. So posing the question, giving yourself permission, being curious, what's one area in my life that I'm not taking ownership in? And like practice it, whether it's like before I get that gym membership, maybe I go lift weights in my garage, So it's just like, the point is like, there's several areas in every human's life that they're absolutely avoiding. And it's not about being perfect, it's about making progress. So let's pick one of the 10 and ask ourselves the question, if I was to take ownership in this, what might it look like?
That's fantastic, Andrew. Yeah, just that question alone begins enabling you to get a vision for what that could look like and begin to put words for what that could look like.
Yeah.
And the other thing I heard you saying is like, you have to be in relationship with some people to be able to gather input. Like, how are other people experiencing the level of ownership that you are exhibiting, regardless of whatever the area is? Like, having that outside input as data that you can use to like determine the amount of ownership that you are walking in. Those two things are huge.
Feedback is massive. It's typically what organizations, cultures avoid. Like, humans avoid feedback by default because of how they frame it. Like, what they like. If I was to ask you, like, how do you relate to feedback? Typically people would answer like right or wrong, good or bad. If I get feedback, then I'm not doing something good at my job, or it's scary, or I'm afraid of it. We like to frame it through the lens of like, feedback is a gift. Feedback is data. Feedback is neutral. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. It just is. It's someone's experience of you. And so what I'm hearing you say is, when you're having conversations with humans, one simple question you could ask yourself is like, hey, how do you experience me as a human? Like, you could ask anyone that. And it's like, what are 3 words you use to describe me as a human? Like, if you were, like, we like to use the analogy of like, if you went to dinner with a group of friends and there was kale stuck in your teeth from the salad, right? It's just like, if no one told you went to the mirror in the bathroom and you saw it, it was like, what the heck, man? No one told me. Like, how long has this been here? Like, right? And so the mirror isn't telling you you're good or bad, right or wrong. It's just showing you what is. And so what I'd hope for is someone was like, hey, man, you got something in your teeth. Now, it would be awkward and it might feel a certain way, but eventually I'd get to like, thank you. Thank you for caring enough about me to tell me that I got salad in my teeth, right? And so it's like, it's just, we have all the resources we need to create the life we want. And I think it's just like, humans are all around us. And whether you're going to get feedback from your spouse, you're going to get feedback from your boss, or a homeless dude on the street, like, everyone has an experience of you when you walk into a restaurant. And so it's just like, one thing I will say, the caveat or the crux of it all is that we only give feedback aligned with vision. So if someone was to ask me, hey, can you give me some feedback on my my business or my what? The first question I would ask is, what's the vision? And then how we invite people into that is inviting them in order to give their own feedback to themselves. Because sometimes I invite people into giving them like, hey, what's the feedback you would give yourself? And to be honest, they give the feedback that I was going to give them. And it was like, all right, well, you already know it, So it's just, I think ownership is just, again, it goes back to this. It's like curiosity, permission, to be uncomfortable. That's what I'm doing when I learn something new. I just started learning how to surf in the river in Boise, and I've surfed my whole life. But and people like to say, "Oh, you've surfed. You would love to surf in the river," and it's like an entire differently. Like it's not the same. It's like learning an entire new sport of sorts. But the way I look when I'm out there trying to learn is ridiculous. Like I have no idea what I'm doing. So it takes courage and bravery to get out there. There's a group of people and everyone's watching, maybe 10 to 15, 20 people, eyes on you, and they're all watching you you get one shot and you fail and you float down the river and you come back and you do it 7 times, you can't stand up. And so it's like this, this becoming, and this, like, it's giving yourself permission to fail, giving yourself permission to look dumb, giving yourself permission to explore and to feel uncomfortable. And that's how we learn new things. And so it's, what if it was play? Like, what if ownership wasn't like super serious, but what if it was just like, I'm becoming someone new, you know, and you give yourself permission for that.
I love that, Andrew. Gosh, I've so enjoyed and appreciated this conversation. For those who want to follow you, and I encourage people to do so, you have the experience, you have the frameworks, you have the insight to really help people navigate into the next phases of their life, to the next level. So for people who want to learn more about you and what you're up to, where would you want to send them to?
Yeah, on social media, it's Andrew W. Simila. You can DM me on that. I think that's really fun for me to play that game. The firm's called Novus Global. You can look it up, novus.global on a website. Yeah, and I think it's just, you can send me an email, andrewsimila@novus.global. However you want to reach out, that's fine. But I would love to, if you're in the middle of a transition, if you're trying to figure things out, if you're wanting to explore what you're capable of and what you're up against right now and making new choices and whatever, like, just, yeah, I'd love it to hear from you, and it'd be exciting. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Andrew.
Thank you, Evan. Appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sure thing.